You are listening to the Thinking Big podcast, episode number 6. Everyone communicates, few connect. In today's episode, we're going to talk about communication languages and how to connect with a higher level of impact.
Welcome to the Thinking Big podcast with Sean Osborne, the show helping you think bigger into your life and potential. Sean believes by equipping you with the tools, strategies, and philosophies required to be successful in all aspects of your life, you can achieve anything you believe in. Empowering our own growth makes a deeply positive and lasting impact on our lives, community, and our world. Now, here's Sean.
Hello, everyone, and I am so excited for today's podcast. And in all truth, I'm actually recording this in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico on a cruise ship, so you might hear some drunk people running around, bouncing off the walls. But that's actually what I love about doing a podcast is I can do this from anywhere in the world that I want, and I love that. Now, in today's podcast, you are going to become more aware of your communication style or your communication language. And you're probably going to learn a few things about yourself as well. You know, just as an example, I remember, my first time to Turkey 5 or 6 years ago. I didn't know much Turkish, and it was almost like I was a caveman. I had to grunt, moan, and point, and, to try to communicate with people because we just weren't speaking the same language. It's just like the difference between Italian and Spanish and English. Our communication style or our communication language are just as different and sound just as foreign, even though we are all speaking the same language. People have different personalities. We think differently, we do things differently, and communicating uniquely is all based on our personalities. And once you learn the style and recognize, your personality and others' personalities and the patterns, you will communicate and lead much more effectively. If I showed you just a small picture of the pattern of a tiger or the pattern of a giraffe or the pattern of a Dalmatian, you would understand without even seeing the animal what you were kind of getting into. You would know that, the tiger is much more fierce than a Dalmatian. And if your goal is to add value to anyone in any influential way, you must learn the art of communicating. And this art begins first by understanding your own communication style and learning the communication styles of those you interact with, and matching those two styles up to get maximum communication impact. And the use of personality indicators goes way, way back. And I've seen and done a lot of the personality indicators, but back in 444, I think, BC, Empedocles said, our personalities are dictated by 4 things: earth, air, fire, and water. And in 440 BC, Hippocrates said, no, they're based on our internal fluids and called them, caloric and sanguine and phlegmatic and melancholy. And then more recently, in the 1920s, Carl Jung, he said, no, they're based on 4 things, and it's thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And there's a lot of new things that are actually based on that. If you've ever done like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, those are all kind of based off of Carl Jung's, thinking, feeling, sensation, and intuition. And you have some that are much more complicated than that. You have like the Enneagram, which is, 9 distinctive different types. But if you look back, most of them have 4 different styles. And in 1928, there was a Dr. William Marston. He identified what he called his DISC theory, which was published in a book back then. The first book it was published in was Emotions of Normal People. And in his DISC theory, identified each of us really as a combination of the 4 different styles, which is something that's very different. It's something that makes DISC unique that I really like. And this is why I use it with almost all of the people that I work with. Is it's very easy for them to understand their personality style, but more importantly, it's easy to pick out the patterns of others and know that what their personality style is, and enhance, obviously, their communications and their connections between. Now, DISC stands for, it's the letters D, I, C, and S. The D stands for dominant. The I stands for influencing. The C stands for compliant. And the S stands for steady. Now, one of the things, again, that makes the DISC unique is DISC is not meant to put you in a box. You are not a D or you are not an I. Each one of those is a sliding scale. Think of it a sliding scale from 0 to +8 and 0 -8. You're either positive or you're negative on each one of those. So if you're, for instance, if you're a high D, like let's say you're an 8 on a D, high Ds make decisions quickly. They're very decisive. If you are low on the D, negative, you avoid making decisions. I's like to talk. If you are high on the I, you like to talk. You're the life of the party. If you are low on the I, you avoid talks. You avoid public speaking. You avoid being the center of attention. If you are, high on the S, you resist change. You like things as they are. If you're low on the S, you enjoy changes. In C's, if you're high on the C, you follow the rules. You are very detail oriented. And if you're low on the C's, rules are secondary and you do not want any details. So really that's what makes DISC very unique, is you're a sliding scale and you actually have multiple, you have different DISCs based on your home life, based on your work life. I'm a very high D, high I in work, but I'm not as much of a high D at home. So we're going to discuss the DISC, what it means, how we communicate with each other better. So again, to look at the DISC, and by the way, I'm going to post several things in addition to this on the podcast. You can go and download the DISC profile. You can download a booklet on how to better communicate with the different styles. Just a whole bunch of different things on DISC for you to go and look at after the podcast. So if you look at DISC, think of it as a pie that's cut into 4 slices. So you have got a pie, the 4 slices, you've got 2 slices on top, 2 slices on the bottom, 2 slices on the left, and 2 slices on the right. So you got a pie, you got a line going down the center, top to bottom, and a line going down the center from left to right. Now the top 2 on the DISC profile are the D and the I. They're the top parts of the pie. Now D's and I's, they are considering outgoing. So the D's and the I's are outgoing, the C's and the S's are reserved. So if you're a D or an I, like for instance on the ship here, when we're out walking around the cruise ship, the D's and I's don't mind seeing people. If they get on the elevator, they're happy to talk with the other people on the elevator. Now the D, he's the one saying, wish that kid would stop pushing all the buttons. I just want to get to my floor. But they're both outgoing and both don't mind talking. Now the bottom of the DISC chart is the C's and the S's, which again are the reserved. And when they get on the elevator ship, they're actually hoping that nobody else is on the elevator with them. Now the S's, at least if they see someone, they know they should at least be nice and say hi and talk with people. The C's, on the other hand, they're the ones actually counting the people on the elevator, estimating the total weight load, checking the inspection dates on the elevator. They're the ones that are the compliant, reserved. They don't really want to talk to people and they want to make sure everything is up to code. Now, again, if you take the DISC profile and you go to the left or the right. So on the left is you got the D on top and the C on the bottom. So again, the D's are the outgoing, the C's are the reserved. The ones on the left-hand side, they're task first. So you've got the D's and the C's that are task first and the I's and S's on the other side, which are people first. So again, you've got outgoing, reserved, task first, people first. So if we look at the D's and the C's, which are the task first, before going on the cruise, they're the ones that are making the list of things that need to get done before and during the cruise. They're checking to make sure that the Wi-Fi on the cruise, as a matter of fact, the first thing I did when I got on the boat before we even left port was I checked to make sure I had Wi-Fi. Now, on the opposite side, if you look at the I's and the S's, they're the people first. They enjoy the people, not necessarily the task. They're the ones on the ship that have planned the excursions. They've made the list of all the names of experiences that they want to have while they're on here. So again, if you take the 4, you've got outgoing, reserved, task first, people first. So it's very, once you look at it and you see it, it's pretty clear to see, who, where someone fits in. That again, that's what makes DISC so nice, is it's easy for people to clearly identify what someone else is, to be able to communicate with them better. So we're going to go a little bit into detail into each of the different DISC styles. We're going to start off with the D. Now the D's again stands for dominant. They are the outgoing, task first people. They thrive on control. They're very decisive. They make quick decisions. They're direct, and they like results. As a matter of fact, being a D, I can actually make a decision from getting up from this desk to go to the bathroom. I can make a life decision, and I don't need the detail. I make the decision. Some of the famous Ds that you might know that are known on these different profiles. So for the Ds, you've got Richard Branson, you've got Michael Jordan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Serena Williams. All of those are known to be Ds on the profile scale. Ds are driven by authority. They'll easily take control. If you know someone who always takes control in a group that you're in, they're going to be a D. They embrace any change that will help them get results, and they are very comfortable responding to direct confrontation. Now, the greatest fear of a D, and what drives everything that they do, is their greatest fear is being taken advantage of. So that's why they're driven by authority. They're going to take authority before they get taken advantage of. That's why they take control. So again, the greatest fear of a D is being taken advantage of. Now, it's estimated that 3% of the population are Ds. Now, if we go and we're going to look at the I's, the I's again stands for influencing. They're the outgoing, people first. They persuade people by speaking. They're spontaneous, they're friendly, they're often in the spotlight. Oftentimes they wear bright clothes. If you know someone who's the life of the party, that person that you always want to go to lunch with, they're going to be an I. That's the classic I. And it's estimated that 11% of the population are I's. Some of the famous people that you might know that are known I's are Bono, Katy Perry, Barack Obama, Elton John, Lucille Ball. Those are all known I's on the profile scale. Now, I's seek friendly environments, and they're always active. They're relationship oriented. They're emotional and animated. They're great storytellers. They're encouragers. They treasure great experiences with others. Now, the I's greatest fear is rejection. Loss of approval and rejection. That's why they're relationship oriented. That's why they're the life of the party. That's why they're so flamboyant, is they're afraid of being rejected and afraid of the loss of approval. So again, our greatest fears really drive most of our behaviors. So without that fear, they're not going to be like that. And it's estimated that 11% of the population are I's. And if we go down to the S's now S's, 69% of the population are S's. So if there is one profile style that you need to understand and you need to better communicate with, it's going to be the S. Because again, 69%. Now, S's, they are very team oriented. They follow through and are loyal. They are the ones that are very loyal to the cause. Some of the great ones: Nelson Mandela, Brad Pitt, J.K. Rowling, Mother Teresa, Will Smith. Those are all known S profiles. And if you look at some of the details of the S, is they are easygoing and agreeable. They are evenly paced. They are great listeners. They're compassionate. They treasure peaceful relationships. Now, the S's greatest fear is the loss of security and confrontation. So remember I said, high S's do not like change. They don't want anything to change. It's because of that loss of security, and that's why they're easygoing and agreeable. That's why they're evenly paced. They don't like the confrontation. That's why they're good listeners. They like that security. And again, if there's one profile that you want to make sure you understand, it is the S. And the C, finally the C. Now, if you are a true C, you've already figured out what percent are C's, which is 17%. The C's are very compliant. They're very accurate. They're very analytical. They're planners. They are the best planners. Matter of fact, the best C I can think of is Spock. That's illogical. Bill Gates, Einstein, Steve Jobs, those are all C's. They are down to the detail. They're the ones that have everything in order. They're the ones that have, spreadsheets that are, 2,000 rows wide. They're the ones that are, have all of the detail. And again, 17% of the population are going to be C's. So C's, they're compliant, they're conscientious, they're accurate, they're detail oriented. Why? Well, their greatest fear is criticism. The worst thing for a C is to be criticized, to criticize their accuracy, to criticize, what they're doing. That's what drives them to be so compliant and so conscious. So being a high D, I have to be very conscious with my teams and the people I deal with that are C's because, they might spend hours on a report or a spreadsheet. They'll come in my office to, give me an update and I'll say, just give me, what's the bottom line? That drives C's absolutely crazy. So, again, from a connecting standpoint, I've got to understand that to be able to connect with them better and not just show that, hey, I'm a D, just give me the detail. I don't want to know I don't want to, or just give me the final answer. I don't want the detail. That is not what a C is. That's what we really need to understand to communicate is what's important and what's the greatest fears of all the different profiles. If I had to put it if I had to put it in a nutshell, D's want it now. They want it now. They want it fast. I's just want to have fun. S's want assurance, and C's want all of the facts. Again, everybody is different. People are different, but we are all predictably different. And if we can tell these different patterns in people, we will communicate that much more effectively. And if we look at a few examples of communication between the different styles, for instance, if you're a D and you're communicating with a C, provide facts and details. D's don't like that, but you've got to be able to provide facts and details. Expect and answer questions. Stop looking at their questions as if they're questioning you. D's will always think that they're questioning them. They are merely gathering information, to allow them to process thoughts before they respond. If, for instance, if you're an I communicating with an S, slow your pace, be easygoing, congenial, and show appreciation for them as a person. That's an S wants that more than anything is the appreciation for them. Respect their strengths and of organization and systems and allow them to plan. And if you're an S talking to an I, you got to be friendly and complimentary and listen to their ideas, recognize their accomplishments, sharing their excitement. And if you're a C talking to a D, be direct and brief, focus on the results, communicate with bullet point emails. That's a great thing. Bullet point emails. That's what we as Ds want. Negotiate commitments and goals, respect their need to work fast while still ensuring the work is done right to your standards. So again, this is just a few samples of the DISC profile. It's a fantastic tool. I will put a link to, if you want to take a DISC assessment, I'll put a tool, I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. But knowing how people communicate and what their personality styles are, and I don't care if it's in your household, if it's in your company, if it's within your friends, knowing how to communicate with someone will greatly increase your connection, not just your communication, your connection to these other people. So again, until next week, thank you for listening. And I will attach all the stuff to the show notes. Again, tell your friends, your family, your colleagues, or anyone else that might be interested in growing and developing to subscribe and listen. Leave any comments and feel free to email me with any questions that you might have. Until the next episode, here's to you, and always remember your future.